call up the chat room. But if you are watching here, feel free to jump in and say hello. And then also, this is very much like throwing a party with very little notice. It's basically like zero notice, and I'm throwing a party, and that's, will somebody just walk along and say, oh, a party, I'm going to show up to this. But yeah, I'm just trying this out. Eventually, I'm going to do this every week where I do a little Q&A because I've been doing live streams lately playing my gigs here in Nashville, and I've had lots of questions during those live streams. And unfortunately, I can't answer to those. There's a little delay of the video. But unfortunately, I can't answer those questions when I'm playing live because obviously I'm playing. So I came on here and decided to give an opportunity for people to ask questions. I've also had a lot of people message me on Instagram, on Facebook, and even directly here about questions they have about coming to Nashville, playing music in Nashville, what the honky-tonk scene is like in Nashville, or just general music advice. So if you're joining the chat, say hello. I have another screen right below me where I'm just monitoring the chat, and I'm here to answer any questions for anybody has. But seriously, if you're here, say hello. Let me know what's on your minds. Let me know if you have any questions, any thoughts, any feedback, or if I should just continually talk into the abyss like I'm doing right now. But I wanted to first, actually kind of wanted to address a question that I got the other day via a message. And this person is going to remain unnamed. And let me see, I'm going to pull up their message. Hey, Rhett. Thank you so much. I'm glad I could answer your, or thank you for watching, and I'm glad that I'm able to provide a little bit of insight. If you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot them over my way. But I just really briefly want to touch upon this. Somebody messaged me, they said, I have a question, but here's my situation. I just got back into the music scene, and I'm currently playing 4 gigs a week and looking for more. But I've been put in a situation. I've been playing for someone who gets a lot of gigs, is great at keeping me busy, pays well, but the downside is he's not that great of a musician and doesn't want to get any better. So my question is, should I collect the checks or move on? So my question is, should I collect the checks or move on for my reputation and mental health? So that was this person's question, and one thing I would like to frame all the answers to is that, hey, this is just my point of view. I am not, the oracle. I'm just saying take it with a grain of salt. But usually when people ask me questions, I say, well, that all depends. What are your goals? What are your intentions? What do you want to achieve? And some people, they just want to play. Some people just want to make money. Some people don't care about money, they just want to be fulfilled. Some people really like the prospect of developing a career. So I say when you encounter a question like that, should I be collecting these paychecks if it's not fulfilling me musically, artistically? Well, it all depends. Is music your day job? Is that your full-time job? Is it just a hobby? What do you want to achieve? And kind of frame it within those boundaries. And so, hey Ryan, and we have Mojo joining. And so, Ryan, I'm gonna answer your question. So you say, hey Aaron, I appreciate your videos and live streams. I'm looking to move to Nashville this year and love being able to watch you guys rip at gigs there on YouTube. Oh, so no question, but yeah, thank you so much for watching. And I really, those gigs on Broadway, it's really like my day job. Kind of like I go in and I play. I have no idea what's going to happen. And you can see that a lot of times there can be some rough moments, some uncertain moments. But overall, it's like the show keeps going on, everything keeps moving. And I try to put these online for people to watch because when I came to Nashville, I had no idea these gigs existed or what these gigs were like or what was expected of me. So anytime I create, whether it's a video that I'm gonna put up later or if it's a live video, I think, how can I help other musicians who are coming to Nashville? What's something I could do to provide value to somebody who was in my shoes last year? Because there was a lot of things that I just didn't understand when I moved here, and I had to learn the hard way. And I'd like to give everyone a little peek inside of that, what goes down, so that maybe more people are prepared when they come to town. And sorry, my buddy, so we got Mojo Murphy. He says, what did you do before moving to Nashville and starting up on drums again? And that's a really good question. It's a long question. I'll put it to you this way, Mojo. I kind of have had two careers in music. So my first phase of my career was pretty much from when I was a kid till my 20s. And then when in my 20s, I was living in Chicago, and I was making a full-time living as a musician, and I got into a pretty nasty accident. And I got essentially ran over by a truck. Yeah, that's not hyperbole. I literally got ran over by a truck and suffered some severe physical injuries, and also I think the emotional, the mental trauma of just reimagining yourself as, oh, I'm no longer a musician because my arm doesn't operate. That was pretty devastating. So that kind of set me off on an interesting path. And so for, the next almost decade, wow, I would say about good 7 years, 8 years, I became an athlete. I was competing in Ironman triathlons, which is the furthest thing from drumming. And then I also went back to school to help other people with their injuries. And I was in the middle of my schooling in COVID, when COVID hit, and I kind of had to stop. But I also started seeing people remotely online, working with people who had injuries, and everything kind of changed in 2020, 2021, and I decided, well, maybe I should move to Nashville and help musicians with their injuries, because I have experience in both music and rehab. And I got here and I had a pretty good client base, but I was unhappy. And long story short, I just wanted to play music. And it took a lot of courage for me to jump full 2 feet head first into music and do a full send. So yeah, it was in March of 2023, I decided I'm not working anymore. I'm just gonna play music. So we're still kind of in the first year of me being a full-time professional again. And again, never played country. I had to learn about 5,000 songs during that first year in Nashville. Cool. So we got another, I'm going to try to answer these questions as they come. And we got Joel from Arizona. Hey, Joel. Oh, thank you so much, Joel. Seriously, that warms my heart, Joel. And I'm not saying that hyperbolically. I really want to do this as a way. A lot of times we see people on YouTube doing things that we cannot do, or having a career that there's no way I can achieve that. And my goal with my YouTube is to present it in a way that kind of pulls the curtain back and lets people know you can do this, all right? This is for you. There's no magic button, no magic switch. It's just you can do this. And it's not as difficult as you think, but there's a lot of other factors that a lot of people don't take into account. And then I never took into account. But again, having come back to Nashville, or moved to Nashville, it's totally reinvented my life and my career. So we got Toad Leonardo. Is your name Nashville, or is that a friend of yours? No, my name is not Nashville. I guess Nashville is a friend of mine, being that it's a great musical community. Yeah, it's been like a friend to me. But yeah, Nashville's a great musical community, but that's the name of the city I live in. So Joel, again, he asked, how do you keep your GoPro from running out of battery during your live streams? Good question. So my GoPro, I will have it plugged in with a USB-C cable, usually is some form of extension. And I'm thinking about maybe using an external battery pack, but I've been having some problems with the GoPro lately. I'm not sure if I believe in the brand quite that much anymore. I don't know if it's that reliable, and I'm happy to answer questions about that. But for right now, I'm just putting up a GoPro, just a simple basic GoPro. All right. And then Joel also asked, what do you use for your cloud storage, Dropbox or Google Drive? I use a couple things. I use GoPro. GoPro has a service that I wirelessly upload my footage from. I also keep stuff on Dropbox as well, and I also keep copies of my video footage here on a physical drive and also on another site on a physical drive. I store everything in triplicate because really when you're putting stuff in the cloud, it's just like putting it on another hard drive, and hard drives always fail. And Toad, no worries at all, man. I was guessing English wasn't your first language, but yeah, thank you for clarifying. So the happiest hobbyist, I believe are you in Hawaii, I believe? Asked, what genres were you into before if not country music? And how does country compare, in your opinion, to what you were doing before? And any new favorite artists? And so to answer that question, when I was growing up, I played a lot of jazz. My stepfather is a great musician, and he played a lot of jazz music, but he also played a lot of different styles and encouraged me to play a lot of different styles. And so I grew up playing jazz and doing, being in a high school band, being in a rock band. And when I was in Chicago, I did a variety of gigs. I did a lot of blues gigs, but I also did a lot of New Orleans second line brass gigs, and played in a couple rock bands, played in some hip hop bands, basically whatever paid the bills. But the way I see music, it's all intertwined and there's all different flavors of it. And like country is just like, it's just another variety of music. And I really don't care so much about genre as I do about people's, let's say, their passion for it. If you do something and you do it really well and you're passionate about it, that's all that matters to me. I don't care what your genre is. If you're just kind of expressing yourself, a true version of yourself, that's great. That's all I want to hear. So yeah, country music is, again, it's not my first pick of genres, but I've learned quite a lot by coming here to Nashville and just diving into a genre that I never heard of before, that I never really practiced. And I encourage everyone to do that. I encourage everyone to go find a gig or find a scene that you're wildly uncomfortable with. And I even encourage people when they're coming to Nashville, hop in before you're ready. Like, you will embarrass yourself. Just be prepared to be embarrassed. And for me, getting embarrassed was great. I mean, it wasn't great during the moments, but there's been a couple times where I've been embarrassed on a gig, and I thought, never again. I'm never going to do this to myself again because it was the worst feeling in the world. But you can't know unless you go ahead and you do it. So yeah, that's my thing about hopping into a brand new scene. So who else is out there? I'm curious, what are your questions? What's on your mind? Anything you want to share? Really, because I view this channel as not mine, it's for everybody else, and I'm just kind of here providing some fodder, providing some thoughts for people. Write down a question, or if you have an observation from the streams or something you want to see more of on my channel. Again, I'm just kind of taking my lead from everybody else out there. And it seems lately people have been really responding to live streams, and I'm going to do that again once I, I got that fingertip smashed the other day. So yeah, I'm waiting for a couple days for that to heal so I can close and open my hand again. But yeah, so right now we got a lot of watchers, not a lot of questions. So I'm probably going to end up being on here for about another 10 or 15 minutes and just giving this a shot. But eventually what I would like to do would be make this a regular segment and do this pretty much once a week on the regular basis. So I'm also curious what times or days would be good for you. And so Ryan Witt asks, what kind of tech do you use on Broadway gigs? And specifically iPad for charts and so on and so forth. And that all depends. Everybody uses something a little bit different down here when you're playing Broadway gigs. And for me, that has wildly varied in my experiences here in Nashville based on what gig I'm doing and also based on where I'm at in my comfortability with a gig. So here I usually have an iPad with me for charts because I have about 5,000 charts that I've charted out. And I use that in case somebody calls up a tune that I don't know, never heard of, or maybe I got a chart from somebody else, or maybe I'm not too familiar with it. And it has like a little roadmap. And I'll have things like my count off, the tempo of the song, the form of the song, any start stops, those things, because when you're playing 4 hours with complete strangers with no breaks, it's really helpful. I also usually carry a little Pelican case with me that has a submixer for my in-ear monitors. So I'll take a feed from the sound guy and I'll just put that in my in-ear monitors, and sometimes I'll have a click track going with that. And I also have a power source for my GoPro. So a lot of times I'm having a little broadcast studio in a briefcase. However, there's some artists who really don't want you to have charts. They don't want you to be looking at a phone, having your head buried in a phone or in a screen. And I think that's really important because when you are looking at a screen, your attention is taken away from the other musicians. Now, sometimes you may need to have that for a roadmap, but if you know where you're going, look at the scenery, interact with it, okay? And I used to use my metronome and my iPad as kind of like a security blanket because I didn't know the material quite so well. And lately I've been doing gigs where I do not take out my iPad. I do not use a click track at all. And some artists like to have the tempos go up and down throughout the song. That's not my get down, but it's not my gig either. So I go with them on that. But also, I used to always be dialing in my metronome saying, hold on, let me call up that chart. And some artists just want you to go. They want 3, 2, 1, boom, go. They want to just get right on the song. And how do you do that? How do you develop that ability? You just got to do it a ton. And for me, there were times where I was really slow on the draw, calling up the next song, counting off the next song, and that would frustrate the artist. There's a huge difference between 2 to 3 seconds between songs and 5 to 10. May not seem like much, but here's like 3 seconds of silence. It's pretty awkward, right? It's really awkward if you're in a room and you're having this big vibe and this energy and all of a sudden it drops off. And so Rhett also here, he says he's struggling with that there's so many songs to learn and not having access to charts at the drop of a hat. And I would say having an iPad it's a worthwhile investment. And I use Fourscore. It's really just, it's a way to it's a library of PDFs. And I just put all my charts in PDF form and I just do a quick search for them. Now, sometimes like I can't call up a chart in enough time and oh well, like you just got to keep rolling with it. So one practice I've done is I have a huge playlist of about 5,000 songs that are frequently called on Broadway. And I will sit down at my kit and I will just hit shuffle. And whenever the chart comes up, boom, I just got to play it. Whenever a song comes up, I got to play it. And I'll practice playing with one hand and typing in the chart with the other, or just getting the songs in my head. And again, there's no one way about it. One golden rule I kind of like to stick to is that there aren't shortcuts. There's no, I'm just going to do this and it's going to take me here. There's no magic solution. It's really just hard work. So with learning charts, I would and I still do. I'll walk every day and I'll listen to my Spotify playlist for about an hour, even if I know the songs, and I'll just have it in the background, kind of listening passively. It's a great way to have that music kind of soak into your subconscious. So my next question is, Joel says, my son plays drums and I would like him to play out with me. What are minimum kit pieces you would recommend? Well, Joel, I would say kick, snare, hi-hat, ride. Seriously. That's it. For a couple reasons. It really, less gear to haul, less setup, less tear down. But if you can, you should be able to make any gig cook on just that amount of gear. Having toms and other cymbals is nice. But I did a tour earlier this year where it was just kick, snare, hi-hat, and a ride cymbal. The artist even said, I don't want any crash cymbals, no toms. I was like, all right, cool. Next, Bobby Culpepper. I think, Bobby, you're in Texas, I believe. This is, what percentage of Broadway is using in-ear monitors? As a guitarist, I find it hard to get the feel and need when using in-ear monitors and no amps. And I would say most guitarists agree. You know, I don't know, but I would say if you come to Broadway, you should have a pair of in-ear monitors. You don't necessarily need to have a wireless pack with you, but get a good pair of buds. I use KZ10s, which are like $50 on Amazon. They work well. They work super great. And I can do a YouTube video if you guys are curious about that as well. But I would always, always have them with you, even if you don't plan on using them. Because sometimes you show up at a gig and they have no monitors. They literally have no physical floor monitors. You just need to use in-ears. There's some places, I believe, on Broadway that you can't even take in an amp, and like they need you to go direct with your guitar or take an amp modeler. Is this ideal? No, I don't think most people prefer it. Just like there's a lot of things that I don't prefer when I'm playing on Broadway. But also realize when you're playing on Broadway, take it for what it's worth, okay? It is a job, it's a gig, you show up and play. It's not like you're trying to get in and get out as quickly as possible, meaning like you have maybe 10 to 15 minutes max to switch over all your gear. So you want to be in and out as clean as possible. And if you're doing this on a daily basis, man, having less gear makes it go by so much easier. And also learning how to play in suboptimal conditions with suboptimal gear, like, oh, I don't get to use my amp today. I have to use a modeler. This is gonna suck. Yeah, it is going to suck, but you know, inevitably you always run into some kind of obstacles in the music business. And playing on Broadway is unique because it sharpens you to all these variables. I feel after playing on Broadway for about a year, I'm not nearly as shook. I'm so much more prepared to go with the flow. Something falls over, someone calls a song, I'm like, all right, cool, this is happening. Let's make it happen. Yeah, just be prepared for anything and everything. Yes, so that's my advice there. And also, like, sometimes you're going from one 4-hour gig right to the next. And the less gear you have, the better. Because think about it. You have about 15 minutes to break down your gear, load it up, go to the next club, set it up for the next gig. You pretty much have about like 15 minutes between start and finish. All right. Yeah, and Joel, yeah, minimum is best, because again, if you can do a lot with a little, it makes learning and growing much easier. So yeah, does anybody have any other questions or any thoughts, any feedback, anything you would like to see in the coming weeks? I'm about to do another video here, my journal entry for the week. It's going to be pretty interesting. I'm actually doing a journal entry about, if you don't know, I'm doing 52 weeks, best year of my career, just chronicling my growth, and I'm focusing on 4 areas, meaning Music, money, marketing, and this week is going to be all about mindfulness, and it's going to be about addiction, therapy, kind of tough, heavy stuff, and kind of like self-hatred, stuff that you don't hear a lot about on social media or presented in a very real way. I think a lot of things on social media are presented in a toxically positive way. Everyone wants to put on this face. Everybody wants to front like everything is great and easy in life. And I think that's damaging to people as individuals, but also the musical community. Because you know what? It's tough. Mentally, it's tough. Emotionally, it's tough. And nobody ever talks about that. Brad Allen says, if you can go on tour with any artist, who would it be? I would say number one is the Brad Allen Band. But I think Brad Allen Band already has a drummer, so I would say probably somebody like Beck. If Sly and the Family Stone ever got back together, but again, those are shoes I wouldn't want to fill. Peter Gabriel. Yeah, Prince is gone, so yeah, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I would, and I would love to do a big stadium act one time in my life too. Rhett asked me, what was the app you mentioned? Fourscore? Yeah, that is, I think it's Forscore. It's available on the App Store, and it's basically like, what I do is I write out all my charts on paper, and I just scan it into Fourscore, and I put it into my library. And I can do things like add in tempo markings and all that. But yeah, I would check out Fourscore. Yeah, and Joel. So Joel, are you in Nashville or are you in a different part of the country? I'm curious because Joel says you've been a huge encouragement to me as I tried to get some gigs. And I'm glad I could do that for you. And again, I think about things that would have helped me when I was looking for gigs and I didn't figure out till much later in life. I had a couple of musicians here in town who are actually my clients, and they were telling me how they got gigs. Joel's out in Tucson. And a big part, I had this huge misnomer when I was younger that the best way to get gigs was to be the best musician and let everybody know you're the best musician and be on top of your shit. And that really helps. But if nobody knows who you are, they don't want to hire you. And chances are you're not the best musician. There's always somebody better. And chances are you're not that talented. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but there's only so many people that are at the top of the pecking order. So many people with elite level talent. So, and even those people don't always get the gigs. Really, it's part of people want to hire someone they know, someone they like, someone that's available, someone that provides a path of least resistance. So if someone knows you and knows you're easy to work with, and they know you can do the gig, cool, they're gonna call you. If you're really great but kind of a dick, you probably won't get as many calls. But also, if there's the saying, out of sight, out of mind. And if you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not going out and meeting people, you're never gonna get hired. Especially, so Nashville's a really great example. I see people posting online all the time that they're looking for gigs, but I never see those people out in the real world meeting other musicians. And my thing is, I'm gonna call somebody I know if I need to find somebody for a gig. I'm not just gonna post a random ad. Just like Beck isn't gonna post a random ad, he's looking for a drummer. He's gonna work with certain people he knows. And the only way to do that is just get out there and shake some hands. And it's really, really uncomfortable. But again, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Yeah, so got time for a couple more questions if anybody has. Yeah, and Joel says, I'm 47, I play guitar and I sing, and I've been able to get a handful of gigs at nursing homes since September. That's friggin' awesome. Just find something, always stay moving. And again, I don't want to say always is a way that's the best move for everybody, but what's working for you now, what your goals are now, they evolve, and like maybe your strategy has to change next year. Maybe you start becoming king of like, the nursing home circuit, and that's fulfilling, but then after a while you're like, I want to do something else. That's when it's time to change strategies. So, and I'm just saying this as an example. But there are very few hard and fast, and that's why I always ask people, what are you trying to achieve? So Bobby says, I may not be able to get to Nashville for another 2 years, which I'll be 41 then. Do you think that'll be too late in life? I mean, I got to ask you, Bobby, do you think that'll be too late in life? Like, why don't you answer that to me? Do you see people out there, like, once you turn 40, is there an expiration date that you can't play? That nobody will hire you? Like, and again, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? If you want to play music, just come here. Come here. Come. If you want to be in Nashville, come to Nashville. It's only too late if you think it's too late. But really think about what your goals are, what you want to achieve, how you want to achieve them, and like what that would look like. I play with people ranging from like 60 to like 16, seriously. One thing I've found about Nashville is that age doesn't matter quite as much. And I think it doesn't matter that much in general at all. Like, what if you're a studio musician? Like, some of these guys in the studios right now are like 70s and they're crushing it. Rhett says, do you have a list of like top 50 songs requested on Broadway? So I'm thinking about doing an updated video on that. Man, if it was just 50, you can play like 50 songs in an hour. And also on Broadway, there's so many different scenes. There's legit like a rock scene, an emo scene. There's a traditional country scene. There's a modern country, 90s country. It all depends on what you want to do. I know people who don't play country at all, and they just stick to doing the rock stuff and vice versa. So it's, yeah, and Rhett says 500. I would say closer to 5,000. Seriously. But again, like, find your lane and figure out what you're trying to do. And I made a video about this before, but if you just want to be a country player, of course knowing rock stuff helps. But are you going to spend hours shedding a Paramore song? If your goal is just to be a country musician and you want to do nothing else. Or maybe you should like spend some time like shedding, just like make sure you know all the country songs so you can network within that scene. Now again, there's nothing wrong with learning stuff from a different style, and I like to know as much as possible, but really kind of define what lane you want to be in. So Brad says, what would be a good blues club in Nashville to try to book? Man, so this all kind of boils down to, Brad, what's, like, are you looking to come to Nashville to like on a tour? Are you looking to live here? Just do a day trip kind of thing? There's also a pretty sharp divide between like Broadway scene is kind of like, it's kind of like, think about it as like, okay, people who live and work in Nashville. Are you playing original music? Are you doing covers? Are you doing a combination of both? Yeah, that's a good question to ask. And I would say, who do you know in Nashville? Start from there. Like, what contacts do you have in Nashville? Do you know any bands that you could swap shows with? That's a great place to start. And I'm not Mr. Booking agent here in Nashville. There's blues here as well. But again, it's, kind of find your audience and then look for like similar audiences here in Nashville. I would say like try to interface with some other musicians and bands in that's kind of that genre. And yeah, Joel says, I play 2 hours a week, my jazz standards with a 76-year-old, and with that and a few gigs, yeah. I mean, playing is playing, right? I didn't play for almost 10 years. And when I And for me, it was an accomplishment just to get through a Broadway shift. And I was really cutting my teeth on that for a while and just doing that. Um, and I still do that because that makes money. But again, my goals this year are to kind of go beyond that, and to intentionally network in other areas. But again, I sound like a broken record. Know your intentions, know your goals. So I have time for maybe one more question, and I'm going to split here. But again, I'm thinking about starting to do this once a week. Thinking about Sundays, Sunday nights. So if you have a time that's good for you, let me know. Or if you have questions, like, try to message me throughout the week. I'm also thinking about doing a newsletter here coming up so I can like tell people, hey, we got this live stream coming up. So I just don't do sneak attack people with a live stream. But also, a lot of my gigs, sometimes someone calls me at like 4 or 5, say, hey man, can you do this gig at 6? And I say, sure. And I put on some pants and go out the door and go play a quick 4-hour gig. So, yeah, I think don't see any more questions here. So I'm planning on doing this every Sunday night. Again, if you have thoughts, feedback, let me know. If you find this helpful, please share it with other people, because my goal here is not necessarily to grow my brand or my name, but to really be that resource that isn't out there. To talk to people in a real way about, this is how I'm navigating this scene. This is how I'm climbing my way up the ladder. I really like to do this for everybody else, and I almost want it to be like I'm everyone's friend, and you guys are all helping me get to this point. Yeah, no problem, Joel. Thank you for watching. And again, really, I'm just floored that anybody even watches these videos. And I always have that self-doubt. I always am thinking, man, I'm not good enough. I need to practice more. I shouldn't do this stuff live. I should wait till I'm like better. But I think it really, like, I'm not saying that to be self-deprecating. I'm saying that to say a lot of times we're our own harshest critics. And you know what? Sometimes when you start, it's not perfect, but doing it today and being 80% of the way is much better than doing it tomorrow and being perfect. Do it 80% today and then go on to the next thing, because we're just constantly trying to keep moving. Again, inaction sometimes is far more damaging than your worst fears of if an action fails. Yeah, so again, thank you so much. If you have any questions, thoughts, feedback, man, drop a comment, like, follow, subscribe. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. And yeah, you guys are great, and thank you so much for following. I really hope to share a lot of this journey with you guys, and the people watching and asking questions. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride, and I'll see everybody next week.